Okay, hello YouTube. Welcome to my third video on the Evans Gambit. And of course, this video's main focus is going to be on the lines we haven't covered. Okay, I just wanted to share an improvement I have in this line in the normal variation that I gave previously. That would be after, say, bishop c5, d4, e takes d4, and then castles kingside. And then we're going to have we're going to get to the normal variation, so that would be after c d4, d6, etc. So I gave the line with knight c3, and then bishop g4, bishop b5, bishop f3, gf3, and this is all still well and good. They have to play king f8, bishop e3, they have to play king h1. But in the game that I gave very quickly, so you probably missed it, I gave the moves rook c1, f5, and then bishop takes c6. I actually have a bit of an improvement in this line. I believe that it's actually major advantage white if you don't take on c6 right away, but instead play the move pawn to f4. And I believe that this position is actually a bigger advantage than the one that I showed in the previous line. So I just wanted to share that improvement before moving on. So mainly we're going to be focusing on bishop takes b4, c3, and then we're going to be focusing on the retreat, bishop e7. Now, this is going to be the primary focus of this video, and then in the next video we will be covering, of course, the boring declined variation, which has gotten some recent usage. But I would say that this line, along with the declined variation, and along with the line that I showed in bishop a5, these are kind of the three major attempts that Black has right now to achieve some type of easy equality. So, first off, bishop e7, originally this was one of the moves that was actually thought to be bad. Like back when the theory of the Evans Gambit started, they used to think it was a bad idea to leave the e7 square unavailable for a queen to go to, because they thought that eventually white would play queen b3 and that there would be no defense. Now, of course, we play d4 right away, and if we do make the mistake of playing the move d6 right here, which some players will do, the move queen b3 right here is definitely considered major advantage white. One of the difficulties is there is really no good way to defend f7. There was actually, again, another Fischer game where Fischer was playing the white pieces. There was a Fischer game that went knight h6, and then takes, and then bishop f7, and of course white has a major advantage here, and that game went very well for Fischer as well. Another attempt is we can, of course, play the move knight a5 right here, but unlike in lines with the bishop back on b6, and this is, again, another reason why people thought bishop e7 was unsound, the knight is hanging on a5. So we can actually take here first, and then we can play queen a4, and when they take our bishop, we take this knight. And actually, white is doing really good right here. This is probably, again, slight edge to major advantage white. These lines are considered very good. The king is still in the middle, and we're not even down a pawn anymore. Okay, so this isn't very respectable. So what do people try here? Well, one of the things that people try here is they try the move knight a5 right away. Okay? And then the move that Kasparov introduced, which is a really cool move, is the move bishop to e2. Now, to understand why bishop e2 is such a good move and such an amazing invention by Garry Kasparov to come up with this move, bishop e2, you have to understand that for a very, very long time, it was thought that knight captures e5, knight c4 was the best white had, obviously getting back this pawn, and then d5 was just dead equal. After d5, e d5, queen d5, this was all pretty much a nothing burger for white. White was not getting anywhere with this at all. Black had the two bishops. Black got his pawn back. This was a joke. So nobody wanted to play the Evans Gambit because they thought, well, this line clearly just equalizes. So Garry did the one thing that people hadn't thought of. He retreated the bishop, but more importantly, he retreated it to e2. Previously, people had tried retreating it to d3, again, not quite getting everything they wanted. And this was Garry's idea, is after the move e takes d4, he intended on capturing back with the queen. And this was a critical idea. He actually used this, Gary Kasparov used this to beat Anand in a very good game. And basically after knight f6, he would attack the center. The knight came back to c6, and then he used another cool Gary Kasparov positional idea, queen h4, and then when the knight moved, he brought his queen back to g3, leaving black with a difficult decision in the middle of the board, because if he plays g6, he is going to have difficulties one way or another. White could just play bishop h6 right away and prevent black from castling. And again, if you can't castle in the Evans Gambit and white has a good grip on the middle, as I've said repeatedly throughout these videos, white has compensation for the material. The other attempt that white has is white could actually castle. He could allow castles kingside. He could play rook d1, and he could play a number of different moves here. Actually, one of the ideas that Gary said that he intended in the game was he intended an idea a lot like, say, e6, f takes e6, bishop d3, where he would be getting a big attack against the pawn. I think kind of with modern computer analysis, I would more favor moves like, say, bishop f4 or even a4 here for white. But in any case, I think kind of whichever variation you choose, again, I think white has more than enough compensation for the pawn here. So this was kind of Gary Kasparov's invention. This was Gary Kasparov's approach. And these lines seem to work out really well for white. So I wouldn't recommend playing e captures d4. The modern approach to try to equalize here with black is the move d6. And I would say this is the move that we see almost exclusively. And again, other moves like knight f6 would maybe be a question mark move. Other moves just run into difficulties. You know, like for example, queen a4, just massive difficulties here. Okay, or even d takes e5. I think all of this is leading to some sort of advantage for white. So I think d6, this is the move. If you want to play this position as black and you want to try to find equality, if you want to play kind of the modern attempt to get equality, d6 is the way to go. So now, of course, we're actually getting our pawn back here. So queen a4, c6, and then d captures e5, d captures e5, and then knight captures e5. And white has gotten his pawn back. Okay, and this is another reason when people ask me, how can you play the Evans Gambit, you're going to be down a pawn. In all of the three main attempts for black to equalize, whether it's the declined, this variation, or the variation in bishop to a5, I would say black is giving back the pawns in these lines. Black is giving back that pawn at some point, and then he's trying to get castled, get out of the middle, get equality that way. He's fighting for equality. So the real question isn't, is white ever worse in the Evans Gambit? It's how easily can black equalize in the Evans Gambit, and is this position so dead equal that it's just not worth playing? So after knight f6, I recommend castles, and then this is kind of an important move order. You have to be careful not to castle right here, because you actually get into trouble with the early rook d1, and then we have time to play bishop f4, when bishop d6 can be met with rook takes d6. And this is devastating for obvious reasons. The knight is actually still hanging on a5 in this case, and knight to g6 is kind of an in-between threat move. So there's a couple moves we want to throw in if we're playing black before we castle. So the first one is we're going to want to play b5. Okay, and then when the queen retreats to c2, what to worry about here is if we castle, and then we have rook d1, queen c7, bishop f4, bishop d6, this idea actually still works. We can play this, and this is actually a really good way to maintain this pawn on e4. So what I actually recommend here is jump on this knight immediately. Don't castle. If you castle, white's still doing okay. So if you want to defend this with black and you want to play the best line, if they castle, I think white still has an advantage with rook d1, bishop f4. We've got this idea in the bag. I think you kind of have to play queen c7 here. Okay, and then after queen to c7, you're putting pressure on this knight. I don't think white has anything better than just retreating the knight, because obviously if we play bishop f4, we're actually self-pinning. They're going to play bishop d6, and we've actually just self-pinned our knight. We can't get away with that. We're going to have to retreat the knight, and that means that our bishop is going to be relegated to some lesser diagonal. We're not going to be doing as well. So I think after knight f3, I think castle's kingside. I think this is black's best hope for equality. So really the question here is how well is black doing? Is this just equality where I have no fight left? I don't think so. I think white's doing just fine. I think white's going to continue with moves like a4 here. And I think white's still got e5. I think white still has plenty of play in this position and plenty of ways to continue to play for an advantage in this position. And I think his moves are pretty natural. I think after you play a4, I think the rest of the position, it kind of starts playing itself. And I think your moves are actually going to be pretty natural. You just have to finish your development. Maybe bishop g5, knight on b to d2. And then you've always got e5 in the bag, rook e1, and captures b5, etc. I think white's doing fine. I think black is really close to equal here, though. I think this is really one of the best attempts to try to equalize with black. So this is the line you're going to have to fight in if you do play the Evans Gambit as your main line. This is the line you're going to have to fight in when you fight the people that really know their stuff and they know what they're doing. Okay, so I think that pretty much covers bishop to e7. And I do think that the modern approach to this line with bishop e7, and then after d4, knight a5, bishop e2, I think that this is one of the best chances with the move d6 right here. I think this is one of the best chances for black to get equality. The other one being the declined variation, which I will cover in the next video. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you learned something new about chess.